Shalom, when it's source by giving all praise to Yahweh, Ba'Shem Yahushua, Ba'Shem Kadash. Double honors to the Apostle Great Millstone, and honors to brothers doing the work, the most in truth and in sincerity. Yahweh's real name, of whom the world ignorantly calls God, Jehovah or Yahweh. His real name is Yahweh. His son's true name is Yahweh Shai, and when we pray for Yahweh, Ba'Shem Yahushua, meaning N, meaning that, and Sham, meaning names, Yahweh, in the name of Yahweh Shai. This is an example of, something that just through the spirit I, keep mentioning, which is this idea that, the AI will eventually become, quote unquote, the ministry of truth, right? So if you've ever watched the film 1984, right, you will have, remembered, this, basically bits where they're, removing things from the books and stuff like that, right? And when you're looking at this AI, that's pretty much exactly what it's doing, right? So let's grab this real quick. 2 Corinthians 2:11. Lest Satan should get an advantage of us, for we are not ignorant of his devices, right? So this word here, device, right? Noema G3540, right? It says a perception, purpose, right? The intellect, right? Device, mind, thought, right? An evil purpose, right? In the outline, point 2, right? So this is one of the plans that these elites have, i.e. to basically consolidate what is true, because when you watch this video that the Apostle Gabar does, right, Etymology Mondays, Easter, and introspective on the word, right, you see at the top, it's like, no, Easter is not directly derived from ancient Mesopotamian goddess Ishtar, right? While both traditions share elements like spring celebrations, the use of eggs as symbols, the origins of Easter are rooted in the Christian celebration, right? And this is the thing. It's like, no, it's not, right? It is a would you call it, a completely pagan a thing, right? Because then as soon as you then would you call it scroll a bit further down, right, history for atheists. Now the thing about these atheists is they genuinely study the scriptures like more than these so-called Christians, right? Because they're trying to prove a point. Okay, they're trying to prove a point, and their point is that that the Mossad doesn't exist, that the Bible is it's a stolen collection of stuff. So they've done ample amounts of research, right? So you see this, right? Easter is originally the celebration of Ishtar, the Assyrian and Babylonian goddess of fertility and sex, right? That's why Easter is associated, right, with the with a rabbit laying eggs, but rabbits don't lay eggs. Right, rabbits don't lay eggs. It's just great. What do you call it? It's just great confusion. It was seeing if there's any more, right? But Acts 12:4, as Apostles going into, that's really talking about Passover, right? Because when you read it, right, you see it in the Greek, right? You see that the word there, right, is Pashka, right? It says of Chaldee, or in the Passover, the meal, the day, the festival, or the sacrifices connected with it. So really, it's supposed to be Passover, right, in there, right? Not no Easter, right? That's just would you call it? That's just once again paganism, right? Let me see if I can grab that real quick. Slack you. I'm just trying to get it. Let me get it in the KJV. All right. Put it into this window. Right. So it says, wherefore, this is the prologue of Sirach, right? It says, wherefore let me entreat you to read it with favor and attention, and to pardon us, wherein we may seem to come short of some words which we have labored to interpret. For the same things uttered in Hebrew and translated into another tongue have not the same force in them, right? And when you're looking at, if you know anyone that is, say, foreign, right, and then they may, would you call it, say a joke in their tongue, and then you'll be like, oh, hey, that sounded funny. What did he say? And they're like, yeah, it just doesn't have the same ring to it, right, in when said in English, right? And it's the same with these scriptures. There are certain things that are haven't got the same force, like the John 3:16, the word there is world, right? Whereas in the Greek, I believe there are like 4 different words for world, right? And you have all of these sorts of different things in, different languages where, like for instance, in some languages, right, you don't just say brother or sister, you would say a word that directly explains the relationship that that brother has, right? So if, say, you're a guy and you have an older sister, you'd use one word. If you're a girl and you have an older sister, you use another word. So there's a lot of context already there, right? Whereas if you were to then translate that into direct English, right, you lose a lot of meaning, right? That's why, the prologue says that, same things uttered in Hebrew and translated into another tongue, right? Because this in particular was written in the Greek and then translated, and the wrong word was used. Okay. But, the point, of this is more just, as more and more, people trust the AI, as the AI becomes more and more believed, because right now there will be a thing at the bottom that says, hey, by the way, AI goes wrong. It's experimental, right? But there's going to come a point where people are going to genuinely trust the AI, okay? And it's only really if you're a subject matter expert where you're actually going to be able to dig in and be like, no, but that's not true, right? So, yeah, man, this man is going to, get to a point where he's just rewriting everything, okay? Because that's just in his nature, right? Scriptures talk about. Let's grab this. This is, in fact, let's grab let's grab this. This is Job 9:24, right? If it wants to load, right? It says Job 9:24. The earth is given into the hand of the wicked. So the Lord is the one that gave this man the rulership over this earth, right? It says he covereth the faces of the judges thereof, right? So the number one judge is Yahweh Shai, right? And it's just talking about iconoclasm, right? The defacing of images, right? But I was, thinking of this precept as well, because thinking about how, this AI is going to be able to, rewrite history, right? Because I'm, sure if you were to ask the AI, right, who are the Israelites, right, that, it would, give the wrong answer, right? Right, it would give the would you call it the wrong answer, because at the end of the day, right, they are all, it's all about who are they today? Let me ask a few questions. Let's do this exercise together. Right, I'm fine. That's interesting. Right. So this is so I asked the robots, says, who are the Israelites? The Israelites are an ancient people traditionally descended from the biblical patriarch Jacob, who was later named Israel. So the term Israelites originates from Israel, the name given to Jacob after wrestling with the divine being. Right, Jacob had 12 sons. The Israelites are central figures. According to the Bible, right, the Israelites were enslaved in Egypt, freed under the leadership of Moses. This is archaeological evidence suggests the existence of a people called Israel and Canaan by at least the late 13th century BCE. It says the Israelites are ancestors of they say Jewish people. Judaism, Christianity, and Islam all reference Israelites in sacred texts. In Jewish tradition, the Israelites were recipients of the Torah. Modern usage, the term Israelites is mostly used in historical or biblical context. Today, Jews are the modern descendants of the Israelites, specifically mostly of the tribe of Judah, hence the term Jew. So to be fair, it was actually pretty on point on that, because that is where this bit, right? Because the word Jew does, come from Judah. Although, you do have, it was a term used to reference the southern kingdom in general, i.e., Judah, Benjamin, and Levi, right? So some groups, like the Hebrew Israelites, claim descent from the ancient Israelites, though these claims are outside mainstream Jewish historical understanding. So basically saying, they claim it, but they're not really the real ones, right? So all they have to then do is to just start, get into a point where this is just all suppressed, right? Like for instance, when you look into like shadow banning and stuff like that, right? How basically certain key terms were basically deranked. So you may be post something, and then because you said something, then what's the word? Then no one will see it. Okay. because this is the thing that they want to prevail. This idea that those people in our land today, right, are the real ones, right? Whereas that's not the case, right? What does the scripture say? This is Revelation 2:9, right? And this is it, because this was actually, you see it's written in red. This is actually originally written to Israelites. However, well, we use it today referring to them people in our land today, right? It's Revelation 2:9. So I know thy works and tribulations and poverty, but thou art rich. And I know the blasphemy of them which say they are Jews and are not, but are of the synagogue of Satan. Okay, right. Let's grab a few more. Right, this is Zechariah 9:6, and the bastards shall dwell in Ashdod, right? Which Ashdod is a port city, right, in Israel, right? Let me get some images up of it, right? In fact, let me just get a map. That's easier. Open link in new tab. No, open image in new tab then. Right, boom, right. So you see it there, right? And then so who's living there now, right? But that's pretty much the point. Just a quick one I wanted to kind of touch on, right? Because this was a direct example of that rewriting of history, right? And as once again, as more and more the AI gets believed, as more and more Esau starts pushing the AI, more and more people are gonna basically look at the AI as true, right? And on this one, this is they were going off on this, okay, right? So in fact, let's just read that again, right? Because in the same breath, right, they're saying, what did they say? What did it say? It says, while eggs are associated with both Ishtar and Easter, their meanings differ. In Ishtar's context, eggs symbolize fertility and rebirth, while in Easter's context, they represent the new life of the resurrection, i.e., rebirth. They're literally repackaging the same sentence, okay, just said slightly differently. But as always, I was edifying. Till next time, we say shalom.